Hello everyone and welcome to another 10-minute talk by the National Gallery. My name is Clara, one of the young producers currently working here, and today we're going to be talking about an exceptionally small painting. So a painting not much larger than my hand, and it is called Insects with Common Hawthorn and Forget-Me-Not. And it's essentially a painting showing a collection of insects and plant specimens together, and it's one of a pair. Today we will only be talking about one of them. It was painted by the Flemish painter Jan van Kessel the Elder. He was a painter who specialized in painting botanical specimens and insects, and he painted this around 1654. Now, why would an artist, let alone an entire group of artists, specialize in botanical paintings or make a living from painting insects? As it turns out, there was a huge interest in botany and the study of nature during 17th century Europe, and there were a number of botanical gardens that were cropping up across the continent, and they were opened for academic study. At the same time, one of the first compact microscopes was produced around that time in Central Europe. There was also the tulip mania in the Dutch Republic in the 1630s, where people collected tulips for the sake of their aesthetic beauty, and there was a huge explosion of interest amongst the aristocracy and the academia in nature, botanical studies, insects, and the like. So artists like Jan van Kessel the Elder and his contemporaries decided to tap into this market, and so they began to produce these type of very small-scale paintings. Now, paintings like this would have usually complemented the curiosity cabinet of a collector, and they would have been designed to have been removed and viewed by the collector alongside his collection. What's remarkable about Van Kessel's work isn't so much the subject of his paintings, but how he chose to depict them. As you will see in the painting, it's remarkable because the insects appear to be alive. They're not dead specimens sort of being stuck on a piece of paper. They're not arranged in a row. They are flying around, they're crawling across the space, and they appear to be alive. It's as if he painted them from life, which of course wouldn't have been possible. So essentially, the effect would have been a general sense of awe or delight, sort of going, oh, as they sort of remove it and look at it alongside their collection of real specimens which would have been dead. There's different ways that you can enjoy and admire this painting, and there are different layers to it. On one level, it is a very accurate scientific observation. You can identify every single plant specimen and every single insect in this painting. It is that accurately painted. But this illustration isn't as scientific as it might first seem. Anyone would be able to tell, after looking at it for some time, that the insects are not necessarily to scale, and more importantly, they would not be seen in the same habitat. Also, some of the plant specimens shown would not be in full bloom in the same environment, or would be in the same environment as the insects. So what we have here is the artist taking a great deal of creative liberties and producing a piece of art by making conscious aesthetic choices. He is making a composition based on size, positioning, as well as lighting and color. So, as well as enjoying this painting because of its scientific value, you can also enjoy it as a simple, beautiful piece of art. It's pretty to look at. A third level of interpretation of this painting is that it's symbolic. Essentially, why would Van Kessel choose this specific assortment of insects and plants? Is it at random, or did he make a conscious decision? As it happens, this idea that plants or even insects might have having a symbolic meaning is not old. In fact, it was established in the medieval period in illuminated manuscripts. The border illustrations would use plant and insect illustrations to symbolize certain meanings. Certainly, even in ancient Greece and Rome, this idea would have been quite common as well. For example, here, right in the center of the painting, we have the image of a butterfly, which is sitting on top of the common hawthorn plant. Butterflies, called Psyche in ancient Greek, were also named after the human soul. So Psyche is actually the name for the human soul, and Aristotle called the butterfly Psyche as well, because he saw similarities with the butterfly and what he understood to be the characteristics of the human soul or spirit. Ancient writers and even fathers of the Christian church were fascinated by this idea of metamorphoses, and so this idea of a caterpillar transferring into a butterfly was sort of seen to represent the human body breaking free from its material flesh body and becoming a divine soul. The white butterfly in particular was later developed and understood to be a representation of Christ himself, because white is a symbol of purity. So the fact that we see a caterpillar on the common hawthorn plant turning into a butterfly, which is right in the center, is perhaps a Christian symbol. The common hawthorn plant itself is associated with death because the plant is believed to have a very pungent smell, similar to that of a rotting corpse. The forget-me-not plant, just at the very bottom of the common hawthorn, was also a plant used as a sign of remembrance and was associated with the idea of the transience of life and how we all eventually die. So you've got symbols of death represented by the plant, and then you've got a metamorphosis of caterpillar to butterfly, representing essentially the Christian soul or Christ himself triumphing over death. And almost as if Van Kessel wanted to reinforce this Christian message, there is a very tiny spider right in the center. And if my identification is correct, this spider would have been a common European garden spider, which in Dutch and German, the literal translation for its name would have been a cross spider. And this is because the pattern on its back was supposed to resemble a cross. So you've got a very small discrete symbol of the cross, you've got a potential allusion to the resurrection and the triumph of the soul over death. So suddenly, this very tiny and unassuming painting has got a very complex meaning. What seems to be a secular painting has in fact got a potential spiritual message. Now, regardless of whether you believe this interpretation or not, or you're convinced by it, what I've tried to illustrate here is how, even though this painting is very small and you might not even notice it, there are different ways you can enjoy it, and there is something in it for everyone. On one level, you can enjoy its scientific accuracy, and you can try to see if you can identify the different specimens. On another level, you can just enjoy it for its aesthetic beauty. It's just a very simple piece of beautiful art. And on a third level, you can maybe enjoy doing a bit of detective work and try to see if it has other meanings. This last interpretation wouldn't have been unlikely, as Van Kessel was deeply influenced by artists like Joris Hofnagel, who were known for their metaphorical and allegorical illustrations, using the natural world as examples, so it's not as unlikely. But ultimately, there's something in it for everyone. If you would like to learn more about our other paintings, feel free to click here and here. Please don't also forget to subscribe and comment below, and thank you very much for listening to this talk. Have a good day. Thank you.